Financial Reporting Through the Lens of a Property Casualty Actuary. Part 4, Statutory Filings to Accompany the Annual Statement. Chapter 20, IRIS Ratios. Overview. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners, NAIC, Insurance Regulatory Information System, or IRIS, has been used since 1972 to help insurance regulators evaluate the financial condition of insurance companies. More than 5,000 companies file their financial statements with the NAIC each year. IRIS is applied to property casualty, life and accident and health, and fraternal insurance organizations. IRIS is known by practicing property casualty actuaries as being a series of 13 tests of financial ratios relative to benchmarks, i.e., ranges of unusual values. These are called IRIS ratios. However, the IRIS ratios are only one component of IRIS. IRIS includes other tools and databases of financial information that are used by state insurance regulators to monitor the financial health of insurance companies. The instructions for computing IRIS ratios are currently included as part of the CAS Exam 6 U.S. Syllabus of Basic Education. As a result, we will not go into details of the calculations here, but rather will provide a brief overview of the IRIS ratios. In Appendix 1 of this publication, we walk through the calculation and purpose of each of the 13 IRIS ratios, provide possible explanations for unusual values, and show the results of the IRIS ratio calculations for a fictitious insurance company using data from the 2018 annual statement. IRIS ratios. The IRIS ratios are grouped into 4 categories: overall ratios, profitability ratios, liquidity ratios, and reserve ratios. Many of the ratios are computed in terms of policyholder surplus, with the intent of providing an early warning of companies in financial distress. The results of each of these ratios are not reviewed in isolation. When reviewing the results of ratios and investigating unusual values, mitigating or augmenting circumstances brought to light through other ratios and information are considered. The reserve ratios are probably the most important ratios to the property casualty actuary, and where the actuary places the most attention, as these ratios are specifically commented on by the appointed actuary in the Statement of Actuarial Opinion, SAO. There are 3 reserve ratios: IRIS Ratio 11, 1-year reserve development to policyholder surplus; IRIS Ratio 12, 2-year reserve development to policyholder surplus; IRIS Ratio 13, estimated current reserve deficiency to policyholder surplus. These 3 ratios focus on the development of an insurance company's net loss and LAE reserves for purposes of understanding reserve adequacy. IRIS Ratio 11 is the same 1-year development test as provided in the 5-year historical data exhibit within the annual statement. It measures development in the company's net loss and LAE reserves over the past year, whether adverse or favorable, relative to prior year surplus. Essentially, this test looks to see how much surplus would have been absorbed or enhanced in the prior year as a result of adverse or favorable development in the corresponding net loss and LAE reserves. Adverse development is shown as an increase to reserves and therefore a positive number. Results of IRIS Ratio 11 equal to or greater than 20% are considered unusual. IRIS Ratio 12 is the same 2-year development test as provided in the 5-year historical data exhibit within the annual statement. It measures development in the company's net loss and LAE reserves over the past 2 years, relative to surplus at the end of the second prior year. Like Ratio 11, the results of IRIS Ratio 12 equal to or greater than 20% are considered unusual. IRIS Ratio 13 is a hindsight test. It looks at a company's net outstanding loss and LAE reserves at the immediate prior 2 years relative to calendar year earned premium for those years and adds to the reserves development that has emerged over that period, 1-year development for the immediate prior year, 2-year development for the year prior to that. The test then applies the average of the resulting 2 adjusted loss ratios to earned premium for the recent year to determine what the outstanding loss reserve should be. A calculated deficiency in recorded loss and LAE reserves of 25% or more is deemed to be unusual. The purpose of this test is to identify companies that may not have gotten their reserves right in the past. The expectation inherent in this test is if companies have had adverse development in the past, they will probably have adverse development in the future. Regulators want to see if companies who have had such adverse development have corrected for it in their current estimates. Interpreting the results of the system. The IRIS results are used to prioritize insurers requiring further analysis through examination by the state insurance regulatory system. An unusual value does not necessarily mean that the insurer is financially impaired. The NAIC IRIS Ratios Manual states, no state can rely on the tool's results as the state's only form of surveillance.